souls. And I know that in order to be or create the illusion that we're disconnected, we have to be connected. I understand that. But every time I try to connect to myself, or if I'm in a meditation and I'm about to get a vision or something's about to happen, it literally just goes black. And then it's like a natural reflex, and my heart stops, and it's like all this fear comes up, but I don't even have time to think. It's literally like a natural reflex. And I had a dream the other night that I couldn't start my car. And then when I did, it was completely black, and the GPS in my car wasn't working, and I couldn't get to where I was going because everything was black. There were no streetlights, like everything was just dark, and I couldn't get anywhere in Australia, and I had no clue where I was going or how to get anywhere. And ironically, in this physical reality, the GPS in my car actually did break. So I'm just there. That cannot be coincidental. So I just feel like I'm not connecting to, like, I don't have a direct connection to my soul, if that makes, I know that doesn't really make sense, but like something is, it's like almost like there's a wire or something. And I know that's an illusion, but maybe I have some belief that's stopping me from that. Like, I don't know. And I'm wondering if you could please shed some light onto exactly what is going on with that, and why every time I'm about to connect or have a vision, it just, without even thinking, it just kind of goes black and blank, and GPS in my car broke, and then just with my dream. So I would really, really, really appreciate some feedback, and thank you.
You may have to learn to navigate in the concept of the void. You may be having too much insistence on what you think the outcome of your focus should be. It may be a lesson for you to let go of all expectation and insistence and learn to allow your life to simply unfold in an automatic way, because you are always where you need to be, and you don't need a GPS system to tell you that.
Hello, Bashar.
Good day, good day.
I'm Erin from Germany. How are you today?
I am perfect, and you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm very excited to meet you today.
All right. Please proceed however you wish.
I actually don't have that many questions. I do have a few observations that I would like to run by you and hear your perspective of.
All right, by all means.
The first one that I would like to discuss is the idea of simplicity.
Yes.
I have noticed that the deeper we go into a heart-centered experience of reality, the easier and the more simple our permission slips become.
Absolutely. It's a process of refining and streamlining yourself and letting go of those things that are no longer relevant as you expand your consciousness. This is one of the major challenges of humanity, is to realize how simple things actually are, because you've been taught to focus on so many complicated details and have so many complicated thoughts that many of you miss the essential simplicity of the structure of existence, and how effortless and easy it can actually be when you truly begin to understand how things work. So by all means, head for simplicity.
Yes, I have noticed it's as easy as taking a breath, inhale, yes, exhale, and I can choose whatever I wish to change into. So it's very liberating to have this simplicity in life.
Absolutely. You may shift into whatever is truly relevant for the path you chose to be.
Yes, absolutely. And it's very joyful. And very,
yes, of course. Exciting. That goes hand in hand with it. It's a holistic system of experience.
Indeed. The second observation is I have noticed recently that I have noticed the blending of nightly dreams and the daytime experiences is really it's becoming one experience.
Absolutely.
Seamless.
Yes, because physical reality is just a dream in a sense. And as you become more lucid in physical reality, you become more lucid in the dream state. And as you become more lucid in the dream state, you become more lucid in physical reality, and you start to really realize that it is just another type of dream. It's just that you have defined it as being something a little bit different. But as you say, the more you expand your consciousness, then those barriers dissolve between the two, and it really does become one experience, which is the way our civilization experiences it, which is why we say we are always dreaming and always awake, walking through a multidimensional dream simultaneously with absolute acute awareness.
Yes, it's very joyful, and it's my highest excitement to blend these states.
All right.
And I'm doing it on a daily and nightly basis, and it's really, really wonderful way to experience.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you. My final question already is about water.
Yes.
I had once a lucid dreaming experience where I asked about being shown the higher dimensional properties of water, and I was shown some type of northern light phenomenon. Can you tell me more about that?
Well, everything in physical reality has, in a sense, an energetic form in spirit. And the energetic form of water is sort of similar to the idea of the northern lights in that it is a kind of plasma. It is a kind of electromagnetheric energy that exhibits many of the similar properties, but is not as solid. So, in a sense, what you're perceiving in that particular dream state is the etheric blueprint of water before it crystallizes into physical materiality.
Oh, how beautiful. It was really, really fun to watch the colors and to the shapes moving and flowing into each other. Yes, it was beautiful.
You are given a glimpse of all of the higher energy attributes of water, in that its fluidity can take many different kinds of forms. Even as it may crystallize into physical materiality, it is still quite malleable and can be imprinted upon by certain energies to retain certain qualities that can be quite effective in a variety of ways.
That's interesting.
Will that do, or is there something else?
With water also, I have heard someone say that water is a foreign substance to Earth. It's not naturally occurring on Earth.
Well, what they're actually talking about is the idea that most of the water on Earth comes from outer space. In other words, it was delivered by comets.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a sense, really, if you stop and think about the timing of the history of the universe that you recognize, the idea is that anything and everything, in a sense, at this point, is foreign. Nothing is original. Everything is spread through the cosmos. Even the idea of DNA comes from other places, because the universe has existed for billions of years. And the idea is that even though your scientists don't know this yet, different materials can actually even shift from one parallel reality to another through portals and doorways and wormholes and so on and so forth. So things have been spreading throughout the cosmos for a long, long time, as you know time to exist. And therefore, in that sense, even though it might create new combinations of things, all of the elements are not original to anywhere at this point.
I see. Very exciting. Thank you, Bashar.
You are welcome.
I have no more questions at this point. I thank you very much for this communication and wish you a wonderful, exciting day.
And you as well.
Thank you.
Hello, Bashar. I remember that in 2012 you stated that we were going to have more positive beliefs than negative ones for the first time in a very long time, collectively. You also recently stated that the decision to have the COVID-19 pandemic was in 2012, even if it manifested in 2020. Is there any relation between these two events? Thank you.
Yes, because it shows you how out of balance you are with nature, and therefore it gives you the opportunity to rebalance it. And that's a positive use of the experience that you're having now.
Hello.
Andrew, good day.
Good day, Bashar. So it's my pleasure and my passion to talk to you today.
As it is ours to talk to you as well.
Absolutely. So I have a few questions, some metrics, basics, and something that I'd really like to get into with you.
Yes.
So some metrics right now is how high is the ship? how many beings are listening and from how many civilization, and when is the window of open contact?
The window of open contact hasn't really shifted. It is between 2023 and about 2033 or 40, generally speaking. This doesn't mean that everything happens all at once. It's still a process. It will start slowly, but it will expand during that window until about 2050, when there will be absolute open conscious contact with other civilizations. My ship is about 2,500 miles above Bell Rock in your Sedona area. At this particular moment, there are 147,000 beings listening to this particular moment of our transmission.
Thank you so much. So I've been listening to your stuff for a while, and I've had in my imagination and in my dream state and almost dream state, different encounters. So I'd like to know if you can tell me more about my counterparts in maybe Esasani, the Yayel, or anybody that I'm vibrationally close to that I can make contact with.
Well, again, you have made contact with a few counterparts here and there in your encounters, as you say. These things are mostly determined by the timing of your energy and the timing of the path that you chose. You are part of the hybridization agenda, which means you do have counterparts in various hybrid civilizations that help you play out the idea of your participation in the hybridization agenda. But I can't be more specific than that unless you open the door to a more specific question.
Okay. So when I was a child, I remember I was walking with my mom, my sister, and my mom's sister, and we're walking in a very rural place.
Yes.
And I was very young, and I seem to remember maybe there was a gray walking with us.
Yes, taking you to the ship.
I don't know, I thought we were going to my mom's hometown.
Yes, I know you thought that.
Okay.
But that is the kind of thing that is done so that you won't necessarily be afraid.
Okay. So then another cool experience I just had was when you told us about the docking ship above us. I closed my eyes and I could see different beings there.
Yes.
And then I opened them and I was in my room and I was like, okay, yeah, this is happening. And I closed them and I was in my imagination on the ship again. And there was a being that looked like a blob with lots of tentacles and two long ones that came straight up to my face. And I wanted to jerk back and I said, no, don't be afraid. And I stayed and it just came on and it seemed to say, oh, this is a Earther. And then it just went on its way.
Yes. This is one of the beings from what we have called the inside-out universe. They are generally in the shape of a sphere, although by being in a gravity environment, they may lose that shape a little bit. But they can extend and retract many different tentacles from their form. In their natural environment, they sort of roll around on the surface or the inner surface of the bubbles that exist in the gravitational fluid that replaces the idea of empty space in their dimensional reality. So you met one of them.
Oh, great. And there was somebody who looked more like us, one head, two arms and stuff, but I couldn't see the face properly. And we seemed to have a very close connection, a male energy.
Yes.
Yes. Who was that? Was that one of my counterparts, or from which civilization was that?
We're not supposed to say anything about that yet.
And the lady next to him kind of felt like a fairy, was maybe dressed like a fairy, maybe had a wand.
That's an interpretation.
Okay.
A projection, a telepathic projection.
Okay. So when you say you're not supposed to say, and I've heard you on different occasions saying this,
Yes.
as we become conscious creators, can you please be more specific about who says you're not supposed to say or why you're not supposed to say? I found it really helpful when I've heard you say to others you're mid-process or something like that.
Yes, well, that's usually the reason. And or it's simply not our job. Sometimes this information comes from your own higher mind. Sometimes it comes from the beings themselves that you may be referring to that are going, shh, it's not time yet.
Okay, and in this specific instance?
Shh, it's not time yet.
Okay, so on that note, so you've told us that the ship is there, and I've been there non-physically. If we were going to dock with that ship, what are the exact instructions I would need, like the type of ship from Earth and all those other things, and how we would actually dock with that so we can maybe start building that?
Start building it?
Well, building a ship to dock with that space station.
Well, that will come in time, but the idea really is that you don't necessarily have to do that much if you've arrived at the point where you can build a ship that will dock with it. They would help you dock.
Okay. So the fact that I'm thinking of building a ship means we are a bit further from that, or we'd be taking this too literal?
No, it's not impossible to build a ship to dock with it, but you simply don't really have the technology yet, and you're not really ready psychologically yet.
Okay.
When the time comes, they will adjust themselves to allow you to dock. You won't have to do that much, except be of the vibrational state where it will be allowed.
And how will we know? What are the signs or symptoms?
Well, first and foremost, open contact has to begin, and it has to have proceeded to a certain point of awareness on your planet.
Okay.
We cannot spring everything on you at once. You have to take it a step at a time.
Okay. I can understand that one. And how about the Yael, who are probably the first beings that we're going to be in contact with?
No,
on Earth,
they are the first hybrid beings, not the first beings.
Okay. So who are the first being for open contact?
Possibly Pleiadian, but I cannot be certain at this time because it is not yet time for that to occur. There may be changes.
So on Earth, if we're meeting somebody, we say this place, this date, this time, and we rendezvous there. Can we do that with them?
Not yet, because again, you're not ready. We have had 3 occasions where people have asked for us to give a place and a time and a date to rendezvous. And in all 3 cases, as soon as they sensed we were approaching, they ran because their fears came up, because encountering the high vibration that we give off brought things to the surface that they were not ready to integrate into their consciousness.
Okay, that's great. I know I'm not ready right now, but I think I'll be ready pretty soon.
You will find out when the automatic timing occurs by simply following the formula that we have shared with all of you, because that doesn't leave anything relevant or important out of your life. By following your formula, you raise your vibration. By raising your frequency, you become more vibrationally compatible with the kinds of things you're referring to.
Okay.
That will be enough. That will be enough for today.
Okay. Chat soon. Thank you so much.
Good day. I was invited here, and I've never experienced you before.
And what a coincidence. I've never experienced you before either.
Amazing.
So we're on the same level already.
My first question is on behalf of my mother.
Yes.
Who invited me here today.
Yes.
If Darryl Anka is here and speaking for a future self, Bashar, what happened in between?
We're not sure that your question is translating. What exactly are you asking?
How did you become this entity?
You mean, how did the channel become a channel for us?
Yes.
Well, that story does exist in many forms. The brief version is that many of your years ago, because an agreement was made for the channel to do this with us in this life, we showed him our spacecraft on 2 occasions in 1 week. Because he had those particular close broad daylight sightings, his curiosity to research and explore what that meant became paramount in his vision. Therefore, through the research, through many years, he encountered many different kinds of concepts that you would call metaphysical. and ultimately found his way, synchronistically, to another channel who was teaching a channeling class with an entity. And in going into that class to research the idea of how channeling could be taught, in a meditative state, a memory finally came back and a message was delivered by us that now that he remembered, we had shown him our ship to get him to start learning what he needed to learn, so that by the time it came time to begin the channeling, he would be prepared to do so and wouldn't be confused or scared. Then he took upon himself the willingness to continue and see where it would lead. Thus, 37 of your years ago, he began this and is still doing it today because he understands that the most important thing about this particular process is the accessibility to the information that will help individuals who choose to use it for that purpose. Does that answer your question?
I hope it does. Thank you.
Or are you asking something different?
I will be asking another line of questioning on behalf of myself now.
All right.
As I'm developing business
Yes.
and success and influence.
One moment. There's another piece to this idea. Understand that the way this happens for all of you is that when you do what you love to do, you're in the channeling state, which is a particular brainwave frequency between 40 and 100 cycles per second called gamma. And when you're in that state, you are matching frequencies with other levels of consciousness. And in matching those frequencies, you generate the same thoughts at the same time as the other entity. So the channel is functioning as a translation device by allowing himself to get into an altered state that represents the ability to translate his own thoughts at the same level that my thoughts are happening. So in that sense, he becomes a representation of my thoughts, a representation of my personality, a representation of the information through his own body, because we're operating in lockstep like tuning forks. That's how channeling works. So, proceed with your own question.
Thank you. As I develop influence and success through business,
Yes.
I'm finding that even though I intend to benefit society and myself, there are unintended consequences that negatively affect other people.
Such as?
Creating a new system or way of doing things
Yes.
that is putting other people out of work.
So what can be done to ameliorate that?
Is it possible to undertake business without, or any other type of political organization without unintentionally negatively affecting others?
Others that choose to be negatively affected is something you can do nothing about. But if you realize that what you're doing may bring about the potential for change that may make it less likely for them to continue to do what they're doing, then a portion of the business to truly be successful must undertake the entire operation of providing, at the very least, information that may help educate others to learn how to do something else.
Excellent. And with regards to acting in a business,
Yes.
when one's reality and interests conflict negatively with another's, or completely opposing interests,
That's usually the result of surface negative fear-based belief systems. And when you get those out of the way and go really into the depth of what each being really needs, you will usually find more coherence, or that their needs can be fulfilled much simpler than you think. Because usually people say, well, I really need this, I really need that, and they don't really. When it comes down to the simple things they truly need, you can usually find a way to satisfy everybody if they're willing to divest themselves of the superficial things they think they need in order to be successful. They will usually discover that it's actually very simple and that some accommodation can be had by all.
So in an event that interests and needs are completely divergent,
Give us an example.
let's say that, let's say you try and help somebody with one thing and it results in them identifying a piece of their building that is imminently going to kill people if it collapses.
All right.
And they wish to waylay blame onto the person who is discovering this.
So this is what I'm talking about. You are dealing with individuals who are simply unwilling to look and take responsibility at their own belief systems.
And so what decides whose reality prevails?
You both do, for yourselves. But again, you have to also question yourself about exactly why you have involved yourself in something that brought about interaction with someone who may not be willing to see eye to eye. So you have to take responsibility for your part of the experience while allowing them to take responsibility for their part, whether they're willing to do that or not. It's up to you to take responsibility for your part and why you attracted this and what it is you're learning from this experience and whether or not it's something you even need to continue with.
How does one bring that into their reality, such negativity?
You attract it because it exists, and you attract it to learn something from it and decide for yourself whether it's something you want to continue to interact with or not.
And how does one leave that interaction?
You walk away. You let go. You realize you don't really need it anymore. You realize you've learned the lesson from it. Remember that sometimes you will attract very strongly a representation of what you don't prefer to make it clearer what you do prefer. And if it's made clear what you do prefer by contrast from what you don't prefer, then turn around and go and do what you prefer. Don't keep hanging on to what you don't prefer, thinking that you have to remain engaged with it. You have learned the lesson. Walk away.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Remember that by being your true self, it's the most loving thing you can do for someone else, because then they understand who they're actually in a relationship with. And if they actually wish to continue to be in a relationship with you, then that gives them the option to change to be more compatible with you, so that you don't have to change to become more compatible with something you don't.
And in Egypt, she was also called Veretekau, which means great of magic. And I'd like to ask you, who is she, and in what reality or dimension does she exist, and what is the purpose of her interaction with us or our interaction with her? My idea is that she is related to topics of shamanism and shapeshifting. And regarding those two topics, you've explained that we can raise our own frequency by letting go of fear-based beliefs or beliefs that are not relevant to us. You've explained about the shells of the earth and how different beings can exist in their dimensions, which we can actually access when we raise our own frequency. But then there's also the idea of actually being able to change form, like shape-shifting, or changing location, like teleportation. And I'm very curious how these things relate to each other, whether shape-shifting and teleportation are also related to shifting frequencies, and how that would work, if that depends on changing belief systems in the moment, or if or if that's something else. I would love to hear about this from you. Thank you so much, Bashar.
No, it's exactly that. It's all about resonance. It's all about frequency. Now, you've encapsulated many different questions into your so-called single question. Sekhmet does represent the understanding of magic and shape-shifting and the connecting to different parallel realities and changing of frequencies to allow that to occur. It is also representative of an ancient Anunnaki being. At the same time, it functions as an archetypal energy that has remained within the collective consciousness of your planet, that does in fact have to do with the power of the sacred feminine in reaching out with the senses into different parallel realities and gathering together those understandings that will allow for transformation and changing of function and shape. Good day, good day.
Hello, Bashar. I'm so excited to be here.
All right, thank you.
I had a question about a past experience I had.
Yes.
And it was during the time when I had a lot of fear and anxiety. And so I started to connect more like with my higher self and do meditations.
All right. Intuitively, that is the correct direction to have gone in.
Thank you. So I woke up one early morning feeling paralyzed, and I started to hear like a melody, a dial tone, and I saw like this pink liquid. And then I felt this intense vibration on my throat chakra, like something was being pulled. And I started to see like these three beings. They were kind of transparent, and they had like, the big eyes and the big head.
Yes.
But once that happened, I became so fearful. It just completely stopped.
Yes, but you can get used to this, knowing that it's your choice too to experience this, because you're part of the agenda that allows you to know that you exist between two worlds.
Yes. Yes. And afterwards, I just started to see a lot of vibrant colors. I started to do things I never thought I could again.
Yes, you'd been upgraded vibrationally. You'd been aligned vibrationally.
So I was wondering, like, who these beings were. What kind of connection do I have with them?
Do you understand the hybridization agenda?
Sort of, yes.
All right. Well, they were quasi-gray beings, but in a slightly altered state, in between your reality and theirs, which is where they brought you. As we often say, many of these encounters happen in a slightly altered vibrational reality other than what you consider to be your physical reality. It still has traits of physicalness, but it's not your particular dimension. Many people are brought there because it's easier to help align people vibrationally in that particular state. So they understood that you needed some alignment. They were willing to help with that because you're part and parcel of their particular project as well.
Okay. So would that mean I would have hybrid children?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Is there a way I could connect with them more?
Yes. Use your imagination. When you think of the idea of hybrid children, how do you feel?
Nurturing.
All right. Then anytime you go into a meditative state and allow yourself to express that nurturing energy, that can form a stronger connection for you to any of them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that.
All right.
I also had a question. When I do like these Reiki sessions or Akashic records, I usually get these visualizations of like other beings, and my clients sometimes feel them, like, that there's more people in the room.
Yes.
So I was wondering, are they part of that, like to do the sessions?
They're there to help.
Mm-hmm.
They're there to help. You're tapping into your resources. You're bringing them to bear to help you do what it is you do because it's part of your project too. So you will never, in that sense, be alone when you're doing those things because you have asked them to be of assistance by providing their energy, by providing an environment and an atmosphere that can be of help to others when they are immersed in those vibrations.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Yes.
Also, we've been seeing more activity like around my apartment when I use certain like smoky quartz crystals or clear out my apartment.
Yes. Well, it's organization, it's clarifying, it's allowing you to use permission slips that give you more opportunity to align yourself, to clarify yourself, which expands your senses and allows you to experience more things that were heretofore invisible to you that will become visible to you over time.
Oh, okay. So just continue doing that and it would just happen more frequently.
Yes, because you're training your senses to perceive beyond the physical.
Mm-hmm.
There are things around all of you all the time that you just don't see. But when you expand your consciousness, when you practice living in your true state of being more and more, then your senses go along for the ride and they are capable of stretching out to experience things that were heretofore invisible to you. You bring more things into the realm of your senses' capabilities of perceiving.
Okay. Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
I know, that's why I said it.
Yes. I also wanted to ask whether it's like, guilt or any type of emotion that gets stuck in the body.
Nonsense. Nothing gets stuck in the body. You stick it there by your belief systems, by holding on to it because you believe you need to for some reason, because you believe the alternative would be worse. As we just explained, the idea of guilt is self-judgment when you experience an alignment to tell you that you've been out of alignment. But why wallow in the self-judgment and continue to perpetuate the idea of guilt and shame instead of learning the lesson that the feeling you're calling guilt is simply a rush of alignment energy to let you know that you've been out of alignment, and then give you the opportunity to take responsibility for having made the choice to go out of alignment by bringing yourself back into alignment, making the choice to go back into alignment with your true vibration instead of continuing to be in the negative state by continuing to wallow in the guilt and the shame. You're not learning the lesson if that's what you do.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good way to see it, actually.
Yes, guilt is just a barometer to let you know how misaligned you might be with your true self. So why heap more negative judgment on top of it by assuming that something is wrong with you, by continuing to judge yourself instead of going, oh, I'm feeling that rush of alignment energy that I'm experiencing as the idea of guilt to let me know that I'm simply out of alignment. I will now go toward responsibility by having the ability to respond to that rush of alignment in a positive way by simply using it as an indicator that I've been out of alignment. Now, how can I bring myself back into alignment? Simple.
You're right. It is simple. I just overthink it all the time.
Yes. That's why it's so important to clarify your definitions about your relationships to these experiences so you can use them in more positive ways instead of perpetuating the negative experience.
Yes. I've also noticed that a lot of people, channelers are starting to like change their beliefs on what they were doing.
Yeah.
So like, I don't want to question my own self. So like, I am wondering like why those things happen. Like, is it the fear base of like,
Well, it depends on the person. It depends on their path. It depends on what they need to learn. Why not question yourself?
Yeah.
Always check to make sure that you're making choices based on the idea of integrity and alignment with your true vibration. It's very important to know why you choose to do what you do. So investigate why you're making the choices that you're making. And then you will be in a state where you can always guide yourself correctly.
Very true. Yes. It makes a lot of sense.
I know.
Thank you so much, Bashar.
You are welcome.
Really
It is our
appreciate it.
passion and our pleasure. Again, by examining your belief systems and letting go of the ones that are outdated, outmoded, old-fashioned, and forming no balance within yourselves and recognition and respect of equality. Differences, of course, are valuable, but the idea is that fundamentally you are all equal in that context. The idea of anima as a social engineer accompanies us many times on first contact scenarios, especially after open contact, to help guide and suggest and encourage different kinds of social engineering in societies than that society may have been used to for its history. So the idea is that anima will also be present in many cases when we arrive and will help with the reconfiguration and social engineering of the systems on your planet to the greatest benefit of your entire population. In other words, you may call her, in that sense, a sociological efficiency expert.
Is she actually your feminine counterpart, and what does that mean?
It means we are extensions of the same oversoul.
And so do you commonly, when you're doing first contact work, do you do it with anima?
And others, yes. She is my primary because of our soul connection.
And can you tell us a little bit about the frequency of first contact? Like, you've helped us understand that human beings operate at different frequency ranges,
Yes.
and that the higher frequency states tend to be between 175,000 and up to about...
Yes. Open contact will require a stable frequency above 200,000 cycles per second.
Really? Yes.
Yes.
So Are you saying the vast majority of people on the planet, as it stands now, would not experience first contact?
Correct. At least
And
not yet in their reality, in their version of Earth. They may change and experience it later on, but again, we are not expecting the idea, due to the probabilities of choices that you have on your planet, the vast majority that exists now, to be the majority that will exist during open contact. Those that shift to the other Earth will join those already there, already existing in that alternate reality, and they will form a new majority. But the majority of the individuals on your planet now, as you understand it, on the version of Earth you experience now, will not experience contact with us in the way that you understand that concept. They may experience other things.
When you say contact with you, are you talking about the Sasani beings, or are you talking about Pleiadian and other
There is
species?
a range. There is a range. Some may experience every variation you can imagine. Some will not experience us at all.
So if you're on the Earth now where you can see the other realities, the negative ones that are happening on the planet, but you're seeing it through the glass wall in that sense, will that be the case for those who experience contact, where they can see so many divergent realities?
Some may be capable. For some, it will simply not be relevant for them to perceive it that way. It depends on the individual and the theme that they are exploring and what they will do with that.
Do you expect then that large segments of the population would literally disappear from the reality of those that are going to have contact?
Yes.
Okay, and so that would not necessarily, how would that occur? How would that occur?
You are constantly shifting, remember.
Yes.
It may not actually be such a big mystery. The idea would be, just like sometimes you have contact with individuals you call friends, and then sometimes years later you simply find that you haven't seen them for quite a while, and you don't necessarily think anything of it. You just imagine they have gone on to their own path, and that your paths will not necessarily cross again. You may have different ideas about what that experience will be like, but it won't necessarily be a mystery for many. It'll simply be like people have simply left your life, have gone out of your life. Some may appear to have died, but some may simply not be around for so long that you simply don't think about them anymore, or you wonder where they went, but never encounter them again.
So I would imagine it's not an accident that we're simultaneously going through massive climate change and potentially a massive extinction event in coordination
Not
with
going
the...
to be talking about anything in the way of a prediction, but yes, such things are possible with the shifts going on, because again, you're shifting through versions of Earth. So you may experience a variety of things that are all representative of the splitting prism, until you make decisions to align with a particular timeline or path and other versions of Earth that will take you in a different direction.
Well, this will probably make more sense to us as we become more and more used to the level of plasticity, where the Earth can shift a great deal, our realities can shift a great deal. And some of the skills that we're learning right now are how to navigate changing realities that may let you feel unmoored or not as grounded to a specific reality.
Yes, temporarily, but it will become a normal state for you, a state you will get used to in the constant idea of shifting, because the more you understand that you are projecting and creating your physical reality, the less you will rely on the idea of stasis as a representation of stability, and the more you will feel comfortable with the idea that change is truly what is stable.
So that would figure into the idea that many humans do not enjoy change, or they believe that change is uncomfortable, fearful, creates anxiety.
Yes.
Those kinds of things is, in a sense, a skill set that we're learning, is how to be in physical reality or as physical reality with greater amounts of change and seemingly unmoored realities without having getting panicky.
It is not getting used to more change. It is getting used to the idea that you're constantly changing.
Because you mentioned when you're in spirit, you can navigate change quite easily.
Yes.
It's the natural flow. You're always experiencing the next chapter in a sense.
And you are doing so even in physical reality, since that's nothing but a projection of consciousness. Again, it's just that most people on your planet are not aware of it because of the agreement you made to experience the idea of linear time and continuity. But once you accept the idea that you're constantly shifting billions of times per second, you can get used to that idea and form a new understanding and relationship with the idea of change as stability.
So the disorientation that humans often experience around change, this is an issue of definition and attitude?
It is an issue of definition and perspective and attitude, yes. Because again, you're already doing it. That's the irony. You're already changing all the time. You're never the same from moment to moment. It's just about understanding how that serves you in experiencing physical reality.
Is part of our resistance to change the idea that we have to redefine ourselves under new circumstances?
Part of it, yes.
And that perhaps we haven't developed that skill as well as we could have it expressed if we were more clear about who we are and what we're doing here and how this is all happening.
Yes, and those that choose to follow the formula as precisely as possible will find that they actually come to quite enjoy the idea of constant change, because constant change is also the ability to constantly redefine yourself in the way that you prefer to. And therefore, it gives you a sense of freedom.
Now, I know you pretty much answered this question, but I do want to ask it again through the way that this person expressed it. They said, you've talked about how the splitting prism is expanding. In the coming period, is it likely that we will experience sudden dramatic splits where significant parts of the population who are incompatible with the collective vibration suddenly vanish, similar to what you described in the Sasani Shikana experience?
Yes, it's possible. For many people, they may choose to do it a little bit more gently. But yes, it's absolutely possible for someone to have a continuity break like that with linear time.
You had mentioned the eye of the needle. Can you tell us where we are with regard to the eye of the needle, and how and when will we know if we've transitioned to the new Earth?
You are constantly transitioning. You need to stop, first of all, talking about it as if you're just going from one Earth to another Earth. You have to spread the idea out over the fact that you are constantly transitioning. But in terms of arriving, so to speak, you never stop transitioning. It's just that you will start to notice eventually that the versions of Earth you are transitioning through, you are shifting through, will be more representative of the kind of reality that you prefer, will be rife with synchronicity to your advantage, will be joyful and constantly creative. So you will know when you arrive at the time stream of the different versions of Earth that you will continue to go through, that'll be more and more reflective of that state of being. You will recognize it, but that doesn't mean you've stopped shifting. It doesn't mean you've stopped going from one version to another. It's just that you have constantly now gotten to the point where you choose only versions that reflect the idea of what we just described.
And is there anything you can share with us about the things that are happening sort of behind the scenes that are increasing the probability of certain events on the planet?
Well, again, I and others are pumping different kinds of vibrational frequencies into the vortices around your planet to give you more opportunities to make decisions based on your preferred choices, to make it easier for you to transition without going through the idea of shock treatment. So the idea is whether or not you're willing to really look deeply within yourselves, let go of the belief systems that don't serve you, and align your frequency with the frequencies that we are sending into these vortices that you can take advantage of if you are willing.
Class and the beings that graduate from it highly advanced and evolved, would Earth be considered the most interesting planet and system to most beings not on Earth?
Earth is very interesting. It doesn't have to be considered the most interesting. There are a variety of things going on out here in the cosmos that make different worlds interesting in their own right. This isn't a contest. There are certain things happening on your planet that are very interesting to many different extraterrestrial beings because of the nature of what's happening, because of the transformation and transition taking place. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other transitions and transformations taking place on other planets and other dimensions that have their own level of interest. So it's all interesting, just in different ways.
But there are a lot of different races of beings observing what's happening, right?
Yes.
Here.
Yes.
And the idea that the splitting prism, or this phenomenon where the splitting Earth phenomenon that you've been describing, this is like a big deal in terms of galactic stories and things like that, right?
Yes, it is a very interesting, very vibrant, very active, very fascinating story. Yes, many beings are very interested in observing it and participating. Again, it doesn't mean that it's the most interesting thing going on. It's one of the most interesting things going on.
We may be from Earth as our point of origin as physical beings, but what about our oversouls? Would it be fair to say that they originate from other systems or planets, or are they agnostic to the concept of origin system because they're outside of time and space?
Yes, everything comes from the same source. You don't come from anywhere specifically. You come from everywhere and nowhere. You are ageless and timeless. Oversouls don't come from another system. Again, everything comes from source. Everything is source in another point of view.
In your introduction to this session, you said we. Who are the we that you are referring to? Does it mean people on Essassani, or does it include all extraterrestrial beings who are interested in contacting us openly?
Sometimes the we will be representative of different groups. People in my own civilization, other beings from other civilizations. It depends on who's tapping in telepathically at any given moment. So sometimes the idea of the information will translate in the plural, we, because there are many beings listening in, and that can change dynamically from moment to moment.
A lot can be learned by observing how another culture socializes. On your motherships, with so many Sassani on board, do you have large social activities? If so, can you name some examples of activities that we would find illuminating about the Sassani culture?
There are many social activities that take place aboard the motherships and, of course, on our planet as well. They are all driven by synchronism, people showing up at the same time with the same interests, interacting with one another in ways that serve everyone simultaneously. Some of these social activities can be something like playing a game, can be research, can be the sharing of information telepathically and experiences telepathically of what each individual may have gathered for themselves on their own adventures independently. It can be a number of different kinds of things that may be happening for those individuals who gather synchronistically to share an experience.
So, since Sassani beings are quasi-physical,
Yes.
does that mean that they are kind of transparent? Or is it that you look solid to each other, but if we were to see you, you would look sort of transparent, like a ghost?
Depends. It depends. It depends on the person who's looking. It depends on the vibratory level of the person who's looking.
But on your level, when you see each other, do you look solid to each other or do you look semi-transparent?
It depends.
Okay. Are there two rivers that run parallel to each other on Essassani?
In the northern continent, yes, there are two major rivers that are roughly parallel to one another.
How many continents are on your planet?
3.
Do they have names?
No. Just referred to as the idea of North Continent, South Continent, West Continent. I was born on the West Continent.
What are the weather patterns like in that reality?
As we've already explained, we do not have a major axis tilt in the same way that Earth does, so we don't really have extreme weather patterns. It is mostly temperate all the time, with a very small range of fluctuations.
And you've spoken of the day of Shakana that happened in your civilization.
The 3 days of Shakana.
Can you share a little bit about that with the group today?
Again, the idea is that at a certain point, a being was born that is referred to as Shakana, and over 3 days, it represented the existence of that being in our culture, represented the tipping of the scales. So where over a 3-day period, we all became telepathically connected. We all woke up, so to speak, into our telepathic connection, because that one being tipped the scales, added to the mass consensus in a certain way energetically that allowed us to wake up inside each other. And that experience of allowing us to wake up inside each other allowed us to experience over those 3 days the perspectives of every single being on our planet as if we were them, one after another or simultaneously, depending upon our capacity at that time. So we really saw through each other's eyes over that course of 3 days, and it changed us forever.
And so was that being delivered to you by other beings of higher frequency?
It was
Or
delivered to
supported
us by ourselves,
by yourselves?
by our own collective consciousness.
Oh. This person would like to know if your civilization or civilizations that you know of employ any type of holographic simulation rooms or devices for the purposes of entertainment, much like the holodeck on Star Trek. If so, what kind of entertainment do you like to simulate?
Sometimes it may be used for the idea of entertainment, but more often than not, it is used in the way we have described in training. As I explained in my training to become a first contact specialist, where a being that is controlling the class uses a kind of telepathic holographic projection to make it seem real that we are interacting with another species, so we can practice being first contact specialists without necessarily interacting with the real civilization until we are proficient at interacting with their particular culture. So we are made to believe it is real so that all of our actions will be realistic. Afterwards, we understand that it was just a holographic telepathic projection. So this can be done for forms of entertainment to some degree, but it is more often than not used simply as a training method to understand the nature of different realities before actually physically experiencing them.
During the abduction experience, when Greys take DNA from an individual, does it always happen on the ships or can it happen in other locations?
It can happen in other locations as well, but again, people are always shifted to a slightly different reality in which it occurs.
And is it true that we have powerful knowledge hidden in our DNA?
Yes, there are a lot of markers that have yet to open that will bring you more awareness and more understanding and more knowledge in a variety of ways. So raising your frequency will allow those markers to open.
Can you share with us a marker that has opened for us that would be help us understand about the DNA and how once a marker is activated, how things change?
Well, the increase in things like psychic functioning, mediumship, channeling is representative of the opening of a marker. The exploration of spirituality, the increase in awareness that you are not alone in the universe is the result of the opening of a marker.
Okay.
The idea of understanding your connection to nature as nature, understanding the holistic view of being part of an entire environment, part of a holistic system, is representative of the opening of a marker.
So I know that some people have experienced plant medicine where they actually get down to the level of DNA in terms of their communication, their experience.
Yes, yes.
Can you elaborate on
that? Can help
that?
open some markers as well. And the idea of the attraction to use the teachers can also be representative of a marker having been opened.
Our scientists have noticed that most solar systems in our universe have planets that are tightly packed together in orbit close to their sun. However, our solar system appears to have our planets spread out. Why is our solar system so unique?
It is to some degree unique, but what your scientists have been able to observe is a limited number of solar systems, and mostly observing the larger planets in the system. In fact, then there may be other smaller planets they haven't yet observed that are more spread out. But again, there are many systems in which the planets are spread out. It's just that to the level of the capacity of your technology, you haven't yet been able to actually see most of them.
I know our scientists are searching for Earth-like planets in other solar systems, etc.
Yes.
And they're finding that life seems to be, or Earth-like life seems to be relatively rare. Can you tell us, like, how much Earth-like life is really out there that would be relevant for us, or,
Well, it depends
connected?
on what you mean by Earth-like. So the things that are recognizable by you as a different being, even though it may look nothing like a human, that lives in an environment that you can understand as being an environment that is conducive to life, there are many, many, many planets that allow that to occur. There are many planets where life is utterly different. So the idea simply is that you're actually discovering more and more quote unquote Earth-like planets as you keep investigating. As your technology is more refined, you're discovering more Earth-like planets, not less.
Mm.
Look to the TRAPPIST system.
Okay.
There is life there.
Oh. Given the frequency differences between your race and ours, how is it possible for some of these government representatives to have made contact with different alien races? Were those humans able to adjust their frequency, or what,
Again, their frequencies were adjusted. That didn't take place in the reality you think it took place in. So adjustments were made, so a limited amount of connection and contact could occur. Beings lowered their frequency to a certain point, but the humans were shifted into a different reality, though they may not have been aware of it.
And this is a particular story where an Army soldier sees an UAP and gets downloads. This is an active duty 20-year Army combat medic. And he's saying, I have worked trauma emergency medicine in Afghanistan. I have numerous awards for outstanding service on active duty. Over the summer of 2023, while visiting my family in Florida, I was on a walk with my son around the neighborhood. During this walk, a low-flying metallic spherical UAP flew into my view. I looked up and slightly to the right, and it shined a light into my eyes. This happened very quickly. As an active duty soldier, I was nothing less than shocked. I have never encountered an interaction like this before. After this event, I started to receive what I would later start to call the gray matter of facts or downloads. Shortly after that, I had a dream about a metal triangular UAP with lights on the side. I am humble and grateful for this experience. Any comment or elaboration would be greatly appreciated.
You have served humanity on one level. All of these are indications that you can now begin to serve humanity on a very different level, on a much higher plane. Continue your investigations into information about extraterrestrials, about UAPs. See where it takes you. But it is a sign that you're about to begin being of service on a much higher vibratory level to humanity, to fulfill the agreement you made to be of service in a much broader way. That is all we are allowed to say at this time.
Okay, and is there anything else that you would like to share in the few moments remaining?
Only that as you now enter your new year of 2024, we are going to begin the idea of countdown to contact year one. So we would again suggest that you prepare yourselves by continuing to be truly who you are, by learning deeper understandings of the information we have shared with you with regard to the formula, making it a clear and precise understanding in your application of it to your daily life so that you can accelerate and ascend and raise your frequency to the point where you will naturally exist on a different level of reality that is more vibrationally compatible with the idea of open contact. So beginning in this transmission now, we will begin to talk to you about preparation, but you are now heading into the idea of countdown to contact year one. You have completed 2023, which was generally the end of the eye of the needle and the beginning of the window of contact. So open yourselves up to your higher minds. Allow yourself to experience contact with more of your own consciousness, and you will find us waiting for you. But we will now begin a new process of acclimating you to the idea that there is now a countdown to contact. And we will begin with 2024 as year one. So let us prepare.
Thank you, Tadeo. And God being both positive and negative things.
Yes, it is. As we say, it's a trinity, positive, negative, and neutral in the middle. It's not really a duality, it's a trinity.
So the manifestation of of positive and negative is part of all linear reality. Is that correct?
Yes, and even some nonlinear reality, all the way up to all that is, and including it. Remember, it's a reflection. The only level that experiences none of it is the one that has no self-awareness. As soon as you have the all that is, that experiences knowledge of itself, awareness of itself, you have the reflections that automatically create the idea of positive, negative, and neutral. It exists on every level. It's not experienced the same way on every level, but it exists on every level.
So what happens to the parallel realities that we leave? Is there a version of a person and the people that they care about that are suffering when someone shifts to another parallel reality and apparently disappears?
No, because there are still things going on in that reality. It's just that your perception has changed. Your point of view has changed. You're looking through the eyes of someone in a different reality. But there is still always a version that is relevant for that reality that allows it to continue in the way that it needs to continue.